Well, towards the end of my message last week, I gave you a teaser about today, telling you that today was going to be really important, and we're going to talk about something really big. And then just in case you weren't here last week, we put together a little video invitation. We put it out on Facebook, and I did the Twitter. And we put that, isn't that what it's called, the Twitter? The Twitter? Or I'm just a twit, right? Is that how you see it? No. We put it out there on Twitter, and the whole purpose behind that, though, is to kind of set this message apart just a little bit, because what we're going to talk about today is a big deal. It really is a big deal. And it's one of those kinds of things that if we as a church, and not just we as a church, but if other churches lived into this, the world would be a different place. And I don't say that lightly. But I want to be clear before we get started, this isn't my vision for the church. It's, in a lot of ways, it's not even just your vision for the church, though it's coming directly from you. But here's how I understand that. I think it's coming from you, from God. I think it's coming from God through you in a way that's being voiced very clearly and really quite compellingly. So this is your vision. My role as a spiritual leader is to give voice to that, to bring some clarity to it, and to kind of place it in front of you so that we can all be on the same page and talk about it and try to live into it. But again, I want to be clear. I'm not setting this up for you. I think this is Spirit-led. I think it comes from you. And honestly, I think it could help us grow into a future that's just going to be awesome. It really is just going to be awesome. I'm going to be throwing a lot of things at you very, very quickly this morning. And a lot of it's going to feel like in-house church stuff, but it's more than that. This is a God vision, and so I really want to encourage everybody, whether you're a regular part of this community or whether you're here today for the first time, to hear something bigger than this church, because it is way bigger than this church. It's going to feel a little bit like drinking water out of a fire hose today. There's going to be charts, there's going to be numbers, there's going to be stories, there's going to be all kinds of stuff, and at the end there's going to be a test. I'm just kidding. There's not going to be a test. Well, there might be. But it's stuff that I really want you to hold on to and listen to, because it's big and it's important. And I also want to say that I'm going to say something that's a little bit repetitive from last week, but I want us to be on the same page, because we need to be on the same page as we talk about this. And I want to tell you this great story that's true in the life of our church. This church has been around since the 1830s. And from the very beginning, people in this church were so generous with what God has given them that they started to give money to this church in a way that would guarantee its ministry, not only at that point in time, but in perpetuity. And so people in this church, especially around the early 1900s, they started to give money into what we call permanent funds in the life of our church. And some of those gifts were really, really impressive. One of those first gifts around the turn of the century was $100,000, right? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money now. Back then, it was a whole lot of money. And so added to that, over the years, we have this amazing permanent fund at this church, and we're going to tell you all about it. It's worth $4.4 million. That's no small change, right? That's a really significant amount of money for any church. And that money has been given to us, and we've used that money as faithfully as we can. And here's the way we've primarily used that money. First, let me say this. We can't go and get that money, okay? We can't get at that money. Half of that money we don't even own. It's in what's called a non-owned bank trust. Exciting, right? It's what was called a non-owned bank trust. We can't touch that money. The other half we own, but we can't touch that money either, because there's policies that are written so that the money that's given to those things will help this church in perpetuity. So that money's there, but we can't just go grab it, okay? There's rules about that, and we can't just do that. What we can do, though, is the life of this church, the ministry of this church has been blessed by the income off of that fund and the income from that fund. And that's based on market returns and things like that. But it's done really, really well. For example, this year in our budget, we have $181,000 that we're able to use for our operating budget this year, thanks to the saints of past years. That's no small number either. That's awesome. And I'm so grateful for that gift that continues to come into the life of our church year after year after year. And it has allowed this church to do things that we could never have done without it. This is a legacy right here, and it's a beautiful thing. Whenever you hear people talking about permanent funds and legacy giving, it matters. That woman who gave that gift is a woman who gave that gift in the early 1900s. When she did that, to know how that fund has grown, I think hers alone is over $1 million now. How exciting would that be for her to know that it's feeding our lives today? What a great thing. A few years ago, we told you all about those funds, and we told you what those funds looked like and what they were. And here's what you said to us. That's great. It's so wonderful that we have those. Can we stop using those for our operating budget? Because, see, that's what we do with that money. That money underwrites our daily budget, our operating budget. And so what it costs for this church to run and all of its manifestations, lights, building, property bills, staff, insurance, all those kinds of things, this money helps pay for that. And what you said was, that's really great and we're so appreciative, but can we get off of our dependence of that money? And your reasons were great. One, it's risky. Right? If your income is based on investments, those investments can change, and we've done some things to protect that, but you've got to be careful about that. The other thing, though, and this is more exciting, is you said we can pay our way, and if we could pay our way, imagine what we could do with that, right? Imagine the difference we could do with that money. And so you said to us 2 years ago, we want you to get us off dependency of investment income. And that's a big task. And when we got that task and we saw it, I thought, this is going to be pretty overwhelming. I don't know how we're going to do this. That's a big leap. That's a big step. And so we immediately started working a plan. We started meeting with people. We brought in outside experts because outside people are always smarter than inside people. And so we brought the outside experts in, and we talked to them, and we prayed, and we worked, and we planned. And here's what we learned from that is that the plan's always been there. And that the resources have always been there. You know how sometimes you just overthink things? It's right there. And right now you're going, $181,000, that's a lot of money, man. That's where I was. But by the end of the day, you're going to see how easy it's going to be for us to move beyond that. All right? And that's where we're going to get. But before we get there, I want to tell you why. Because here's this thing. When we talk about money in church, I understand it's kind of a bad joke because it's true, right? Everybody's like, oh, the church, they just want your money. They just want your money and all this stuff. And the church's like, no, it's God. It's God. And there's kind of this tension going on. I know it's hard to talk about money, but we need to talk about money. And let me be very clear about this. It's more than about the church, and it's more than about just money. It's about ministry. That's what it's about. Dollars are the language of the world. Without dollars, you cannot do ministry. Without dollars, Dearson House and what they're doing doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. Because you got to have it. It's the currency. It's the language of currency right now, and that's the way it works. So it's not just about dollars. It's about ministry. And what I want to talk about is we're not just doing this so we can get off the investment income and reinvest that income and do all that. We want to expand ministry. That's why we want to get off this income. That's what you've told us. And there's two ways that the church works in the world. I'm painting with a big, broad brush here. There's two ways the church works in the world. Both of them are equally important, okay? I'm going to talk about one first and the other second, but that's not because the first is more important. The church operates in the world first as a community of faith. We are the ecclesia. We're the called out ones. We're the church. And God, according to God's word in Scripture, calls the church to come together for some very important reasons. First, we're called to come together to worship. And in worship, we give praise and thanks to God for all that God has done for us. We come together and worship. Two, like we talked about last week a lot, we're here to teach. Because if you're going to be a follower of Jesus, you need to know what Jesus taught. And so we're here to teach. We're a learning community, always learning about what it means to be disciples. And we come together to do that. We're also a community that cares. If you've ever been in a crisis, if you've ever been in a place of difficulty, you know how powerful a loving church community can be in the midst of loss, in the midst of change, in the midst of struggle. The church is here to care for you, and the church does that in a way that's beautiful and wonderful. The church is also here to celebrate with you in times of joy. Last week we had the baby dedication, right? It was beautiful. It was beautiful. That's what it means to be family, right? We're a church family. And what we do is so important. And this is our house. This is our home. This is where we come to experience God. We call it a sanctuary because it shelters us from the storms outside this place. And we come in here and great things happen in this building. I know it's just a building. And I even talk about that sometimes. It's just a building. It's just bricks and mortar. It's just a building. Without you and without God's Spirit, it's just bones. And that's true. But it's more than just a building. It's more than just our home. It's God's home. And when we come in here, it's like coming into our den or our family room or our living room. But when new people come in, they're wanting to experience Christ in this place. And they come here to experience Christ in this place. They're not going to experience Christ in this place without the grace of that presence being here. And so in all of our ministries and our worship and everything we do inside this building, it's about a Christ encounter. What we do here matters. And we're so blessed. You know, we don't even have a mortgage on this building anymore because of the faithfulness of church members, right? But as wonderful as our building is and as incredible things happen in here, you know, this building's over 35 years old. It's starting to show its age. It really is. And in a lot of ways, because it's starting to show its age, it's starting to limit us in ministry. And look, I know it's not very exciting to talk about walls and property and bills and all those kinds of things. That's not really cool. But can we just be honest for a moment? It's kind of nice not to need a four-wheel drive vehicle to get in our parking lot right now, isn't it? Right? If you were here 2 or 3 weeks ago, you know how bad it was, right? How do you like those little yellow lines that actually show you where to park? All right? It's awesome, right? It's really nice. What if some other changes could take place? What if we could better resource our food pantry so that it could serve our community even more? What if we could change our structure down there so that it worked better? What if we had like maybe a little better lighting? Just a little better lighting in the sanctuary and maybe throughout the building? What if there was just a few more feet outside these doors so that when you came to worship, you didn't feel like you were a salmon swimming upstream to come in here and worship? What about our children's space and our youth space? You know, all these things are just rooms, but ministry that happens within them is important and essential. We have to take care of this building. We've got to. If we don't, it's going to fall down around us. And right now, we're barely taking care of it. We've got a budget that kind of covers things, but it doesn't push us beyond, and it doesn't really allow for beautification or renovation or those kinds of things. All right, so we got to take care of our house because it's God's home and it's our home, and important things happen here. Second thing about church, and this is equally important, is we don't just come here to have services provided for us, right? This is not a country club. This is not a place where you come and we're here to take care of you and your family and everything that you need. We do that, but the reason we do that is so that we strengthen and call you to go out and make a difference in the world, right? This is like a mission station. We come here, we get fed, we learn, we grow, we nurture, we support, we encourage, and then we leave this place and we go out there because we're supposed to be a city on a hill. We're supposed to be a light in a darkened world. We're supposed to be the hands and feet of Christ. And so we leave here and we get out in the world, and that's extremely important. And you get that. We know this. It's our mission it's our identity statement. We are a movement for wholeness in a fragmented world. That's what we do. We make a difference. We go to prisons. We go downtown where people are homeless. We go out into the streets. We go into hospitals. We go everywhere we can to make a difference. And each one of us is called to do that in a different way. And since we've adopted that statement, you become so missionally minded. We have dozens of awesome ministries out in our community that are making a difference. And that's something that you all are doing. Now, imagine this, though. Imagine if not only did you just have the energy of your time and talents, but what if you had money for that? What if we could infuse you with not just hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars, but tens of thousands of dollars? What if we could give the members of this church who are called to make a difference in our world and organizations in our community, what if we could give tens of thousands of dollars to make a difference beyond these doors? That had nothing to do with this church's bottom line, just the bottom line of God's kingdom doing great work outside. What if we could do that? That's a game changer, right? So what we're talking about as church, we've got to take care of our home, but we take care of our home so we can take care of the world, right? All right, so here's the vision. Here's what we're talking about. Let's go back to that $181,000. And we're going to be talking a lot about God's economy today. And I'm telling you, whether you're part of this church or not, when you hear me talking about God's economy versus the world's economy, God's economy totally rocks. It's fantastic, and it applies more than just to this church, okay? So let's look at this $181,000. That's our investment income, right? This is what we're proposing. You said get off of that income, all right? We're gonna do that. This is what we're proposing. Let's just split it in half, okay? 90,000. Imagine this. Let's just assume that we're covering our needs, right? And this money we've got to use as we choose. $90,500 within the walls, $90,500 beyond the walls. All right? We're going to split it right down the middle. We're going to take care of our house, and we're going to take care of the world outside, right down the middle. These numbers, as someone who's been here for 12 years and knows what goes on in the life of this church and our budget, these are game-changing numbers. Game changing. We have these numbers, everything changes in a big, big way. The house starts to look differently. The ministries that happen here get more effective. And what we're doing out in the world starts to shine a light like no other we've seen in Louisville, right? Because people are seeing what we're doing and they're hearing it and they're going, wow, what's going on over there? These folks mean it, all right? These are game-changing, God-inspired numbers. No question about it. All right, so how do we do this? How do we get a hold of that money in a way that allows us to free this up? All right, we're going to dig in just a little bit deeper. In 2013, you, members of this church, and those who are a part of our community, gave $437,620. Can I just say that's awesome? That's awesome. I mean, that is really, really good. And we've done some great work with that money, okay? It's been fantastic. That amount of money is given by 215 individuals and families, okay? Again, outstanding. There's a lot of faith in this church, and I think it represents just a lot of good-hearted people wanting to make a difference in our world. And so that's fantastic. What I want to do, though, is, remember last week I promised we're going to be as transparent as possible. You can see our budget anytime you want to see it, but we're going to tell you where you are, right? So you can always have a lens to the budget into where the church is, but I'm going to give you a lens into where you are today, okay, where we are. And I'm going to do that by showing you this stair-step thing. And I'm going to show you how the numbers break out and who gives what money to this church, right? Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not doing this. The purpose of doing this isn't to say that those people at the bottom of the ladder aren't as important as the people at the top of the ladder. This isn't about telling you that worth comes from where you are on that ladder. Just as a reminder, remember the story of the widow's mite. Jesus is outside the treasure. There's all these rich people who are walking up to the treasury and they're putting tons of money in. And then there's a widow who walks up and puts in one tiny little amount of money. And Jesus says, truly I tell you today, she's the one who's given the most, right? Because it isn't about the number, it's about the heart and how we live into proportion of what God has given us in the call, okay? So this isn't about value. And now I'm going to make a point with this first one. 56 people give this church between $1 and $100 a year. Out of those 215, 56 give up to $100. Now you may be thinking, $100? Come on. But let me tell you what I see in that number. We ask our kids and our teens to pledge and give to our church. $100 may not be a lot to me or to you, but it is to an 8-year-old. It's a ton of money to an 8-year-old, right? When I see 56 in that number, I'm seeing some widows. I'm seeing some mites. I'm seeing some faith. I'm seeing awesomeness right there. What you're seeing right there is faith. It may not be a lot in amount, but I know when Jesus sees that number and he sees those gifts being given by those kids and others who are in a place where that's all they can do, I know there's great rejoicing. Of all the numbers I'm about to show you, I think 56 right there is about my favorite because I know the heart that's behind it. And some of it's just awe-inspiring, okay? So it's good stuff. Let's move up just so you can see where everybody is. I encourage you to just kind of find yourself on the chart. When we reach your place on the chart, don't raise your hand. Because that would be weird. I mean, you're welcome to, but you don't need to. I just want you to kind of see where you are, and I want you to see where everybody is. Okay. From 100 to 500, there's 43. From 500 to 1,000, there's 27. From 1,000 to 25, there's 35. From 25 to 5,000, there's 31. From 5,000 to 7, there's 6. From 7 to 10, there's 9. From 10 to 15, there's 6. And over 15, there's 2. All right. So now you know where you are, and you know where the rest of your church is. Okay? We're getting some glimpse into where we are as a community. And through that, $437,620. Again, awesome. What I love about this is it lets you know that even the top giver, right? The top giver cannot do what the top giver could do without those bottom 56. It's only together. It's only together. This is God's economy at work. It's only together that we can have that $437,000 gift, right? It's just awesome. All right, now I'm going to give you a little bit more. We're going to talk about averages now, and I'd love to see every church do this across the nation. We're going to talk about averages. We're going to talk about where our church is specifically. We're in 40241, and I know a lot of you live in other zip codes. I live in another zip code, but our church is in 40241. The median income of household in 40241 is $67,176. That's the median household. Some people are below that. Some people are well above that. That's the median number, okay? That's the median number. Now, you take our budget of $437, what people give, take that number of $437, divide it by 215, you get right at about $2,000, right? A little bit over $2,000. So that gives us in this church a giving rate of about 3%. Okay, so more transparency for where we are as a church. We're at a giving rate of about 3%, all right? Now, hang in there. We're getting there. Money's coming. And this is one of my favorite parts. We get a chart. Because charts, I mean, whatever you can put into a chart is just better. Okay, so here we are on the chart. At 3%, we give $620. All right, look what happens at 4%. 4% of that median income, all right? This is just 4%. Come on up, Zachy. Zachy's looking for mom. Come on up. All right, so 4%. Look what happens if we give it 4%. Our giving level jumps to $577,716. That's a difference of $140,000. That's moving from 3% to 4%, right? That's a pretty big jump. $140,000 by moving up 1%. Look what happens at 5%. $722,000 of giving. Look at the number on the additional side. $284,000. This is a test. What was our dependence on investment income? 181. All right? 3%, 181 dependency. 5%, not only do we clear ourselves off of dependency, right? But look how much additional money we have there. It's over $90,000 that goes back on top of that for like 200, what's 180 plus 90? Like close to $280,000, right? 250, north of 250. Let's just preacher math. North of 250, right? That's unbelievable. I mean, we're talking about economies of scale here for this size of church. We're talking about making big differences in the life of our church and the life of our community by moving from 3% to 5%, right? It's 2%. Now, again, if you love charts, you're going to love this. I mean, come on. It's multicolored. It's awesome. Okay, if your income's on the left and giving levels are moving across the top, if you're like me, you need this. So what I want you to focus on is I want you to focus on this right here, 64. That's about where we are, right? This is where, for me, this gets totally cool. Because if we're giving it 3% right now at about $64,000, again, that's the average, look, to get to 4%, it's $12 a week. That's it. $12 a week. Now, we could each have plenty of examples of how we spend $12 a week like that, and we didn't even give thought about it. I mean, that's a couple Starbucks, maybe 3, depending on the size and what you put in it. It's maybe some McDonald's, right? One of our generosity team, when we were talking about this, said, hey, last week my wife and I went out for lunch and all we had was sandwiches and a couple glasses of wine. It was $38. If you get rid of the wine, there's your $12 right there. And another one of our generosity team members was, or you could just get rid of the sandwiches and keep the wine. And there's your $12. Whether you drink the wine or keep the sandwiches, there's ways to do this, right? $12 a week jumps us, on average, from 3% to 4% and increases our giving in this church $140,000. Look, check this out. Another $12, $250,000 increase. Where, on incomes of scale in terms of average, $12 plus $12, $24 a week, where else can you turn $24 a week into $250,000 a year? That is a return on investment that's unbelievable. That's God's economy. Okay? Look, this isn't about the church getting your money. This is about Dearson House. This is about blankets in the hands of homeless. This is about ministry changing lives. That's what this is about. And I'm telling you right now, if we make this leap, a year from now, you're going to hear stories about how this church has used your money, your gifts to God, to great glory for God. And if a year from now we can't demonstrate to you, if you give us $250,000, if we can't demonstrate to you what we've done with that $250,000, I expect you and I expect God to hold us accountable. It'll happen, okay? Unbelievable things can happen. Of that, I am absolutely convinced. I'm going to share with you a scripture passage Hard scripture passage, but in it lies a great truth for us and our nation. This is a powerful word you're about to see. It comes from Malachi. Will anyone rob God? Yet you are robbing me. But you say, how are we robbing you? In your tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you are robbing me, the whole nation of you. Bring the full tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house, and thus put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts. See if I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down for you an overflowing blessing. There's a couple things I want to say here. First of all, there's no other passage in Scripture where God says, test me. This is the only one, all right? And God's clearly saying, test me on this, and you'll see how this works out. Secondly, I'm going to end the conversation, I'm going to end the debate right here. This is what a tithe is, okay? This is a tithe. A full tithe is 10% of your gross income. Not your net. It's 10% of your gross income. That's the biblical definition of a tithe. So if we're giving it 3%, it could be a very, very faithful gift. It could be a pledge. It could be a donation. It is not a tithe, okay? A tithe is 10% of your gross income. Anything else is not a tithe. Anything over that is a tithe plus. Anything under that, not a tithe. Okay, that's the definition. Now, what God is saying is, in my economy, if you bring in a full tithe, there's going to be blessing. If you don't bring in a full tithe, there's going to be curse. And I'm going to show you how this works, all right? Get ready, because, okay, back to the chart. Love the chart. Here's our economy. 3%, 437. That's our economy. Our economy may be 5%, which increases by 284. Look at God's economy. Here's God's economy. 215 givers. At an average gift, at an average household income of $67,000, if all of that was bringing in a full tithe into God's storehouse, $1.4 million, okay? 1.4 million, that's an increase in annual giving of $1 million. I feel like Austin Powers when I say that. $1 million. Look at how this plays out. $1.4 million at 10%. Add $181,000 investment income, you're at $1.6 million. Take away our $600,000 operating budget, which when you look at God's income is less than 50%, which feels like we're doing pretty good. $995,289. All right? Just in case that's small, $995,289. That's God's economy. That's after we take care of every need we have in this church. That's above and beyond. Split that number in half. That's almost $500,000 for ministries inside the walls and outside the walls. Multiply that by 5 years. Multiply that by 10 years. Do you think the world would look different if every single Christian in every single church tested God on this and brought a full tithe into God's storehouse for work to be done in the world? Do you think the world would look a little bit different? We're a small church, and yet we could contribute $1 million to the glory of God above what we're already doing. That's God's economy. And here's what's interesting for me about this, beyond what we're talking about as a church, is we just have all these dialogues about what we're supposed to do as a community, and we look out in our world, and we see all these curses, and I'm so glad we're past election, because now I can kind of talk about this freely, because anytime this happens, people are like, oh man, if only that political party would do this, this, or this, the world would be better, and that political party, oh, if they would only do this, this, and this, and if those takers had quit on taking, and then the other people are like, oh, that top 1%, they're just so selfish, and blah, blah, blah. Everyone blames everybody else for why it feels like our nation is cursed. And God is saying, that's because you're living in your economy. If you're going to keep living in your economy, you're going to keep feeling like it's a curse. If you want to break the curse, live into my economy. Christians, people of faith, bring a full tithe into the storehouse of God. And do you not know that a blessing will pour out upon you and upon your nation that will be like nothing else you've ever seen before? We're a small church and we're talking $1 million. What if our church set the pace? Do you not think other churches wouldn't follow? Who's this church out there in northeastern Jefferson County that just funneled $500,000 into community needs? Who did that? Why do you do that? Because we believe in God's economy over our own. All right? Look, I know what we're talking about, even though we're talking about on average $12 or $24. I get that. That can be a stretch. That can be hard. It's harder for all of us, and we're all on different places on the scale. I know it's challenging. I know that. I know you may not be able to jump to that 10% place. God knows that too. But can we move a little bit? Can we shoot for 5 if you're not there? It's 5 cents on every dollar. 5 cents on every dollar. That's it. If we could do that this year, that's not even half of what God is asking us to do. 5 cents on every dollar. I'm telling you, it changes everything. Like I said before, this isn't my vision. I don't think it's just your vision. I think it's God's vision. But 2 years ago, you said to us, we want to do this. How do we do it? The reality is the plan has always been there. And here's the other reality. We have the resources, church. We have the resources. We're the ones who are choosing where it's going. We have the resources. Question is, do we have the faith? Do we have the faith? Put God to the test on this. See what may happen. You've given us a call. We've laid before you God's plan. The ball is in your court. Are you ready to stake your claim? I hope so. God calls us to do so. And the world desperately needs us to do so. Amen.